I never thought silence could be this loud. But when you're sitting in a house that used to echo with laughter, and now only echoes your own breathing, you learn that silence isn't empty at all. It's full of everything you destroyed. My name is Marina Chen, and this is the story of how I lost everything worth keeping while chasing something that was never real. They say hindsight is 20/20, but when you're standing in the wreckage of your own life, clarity doesn't bring comfort. It just shows you exactly how many chances you had to turn back and didn't. It started on a Tuesday. Isn't that strange? The worst decisions of your life don't always happen on dramatic, stormy nights. Sometimes they happen on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, when you're making dinner and your phone lights up with a name you haven't seen in 7 years. Cameron Ashford. Just seeing those 2 words made my hands go cold. I was chopping vegetables for the stir-fry Marcus loved, and suddenly the knife felt heavy in my grip. My husband was in the living room, scrolling through his tablet, probably looking at engine parts for his motorcycle repair shop. He built that business from nothing, working 16-hour days, bleeding knuckles, borrowed money, and pure determination. I used to bring him lunch at the shop during those early years, sitting on overturned crates, while he explained the difference between carburetors and fuel injectors like they were the most fascinating things in the world. I loved watching his face light up when he talked about his work. Marcus had this way of making everything seem possible, like every broken bike was just a puzzle waiting to be solved. But that Tuesday, I wasn't thinking about Marcus or his dreams, or the life we'd built together over 9 years of marriage. I was staring at my phone, at Cameron's message glowing on the screen. Hey stranger, I'm back in Riverside. Coffee sometime? 3 sentences, 21 words. That's all it took to crack open a door I should have kept bolted shut. Cameron was my first everything. First love, first heartbreak, first person who made me believe I was special. We dated through college, one of those intense, consuming relationships where you can't imagine life without the other person. Then he got a job offer in Seattle right after graduation, and I got accepted into a graduate program in Riverside. We tried long distance for about 6 months before it fell apart in a mess of missed calls, jealous arguments, and eventual silence. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of moving on, meeting Marcus, building a stable life, becoming someone different, someone better, I thought. I should have deleted that message. I should have told Marcus right then, hey, my ex just reached out. Isn't that weird? We could have laughed about it together. He would have said something practical like, guess he realized what he lost. And we would have moved on with our evening. But I didn't do any of that. Instead, I typed back, sure, when works for you. Looking back now, I can see that was the exact moment everything started unraveling. Not dramatically, not obviously, just a tiny thread pulled loose. But once you start pulling, sometimes you can't stop until the whole thing falls apart. Marcus called from the living room. Marina, you need help in there? No, I'm good, I called back, deleting Cameron's message from my screen like that would make it less real. We met for coffee that Saturday. I told Marcus I was meeting my college friend Sophia to help her pick out furniture for her new apartment. The lie came out so smoothly, it scared me a little. I'd never been a good liar before. Apparently, I just needed the right motivation. Cameron looked different. Older, obviously, but also more polished. Designer jacket, expensive watch, hairstyled in that deliberately casual way that probably took 20 minutes and 3 products. He worked in tech now, some startup that had been acquired by a larger company. He talked about venture capital and equity stakes and living in a downtown loft with floor-to-ceiling windows. So you did it, I said, stirring my latte. You got everything you wanted. He shrugged. Professionally, yeah. Personally? He looked at me with those green eyes that used to make my stomach flip. I left behind the one thing that actually mattered. I should have laughed. I should have rolled my eyes at such an obvious line. Instead, I felt something flutter in my chest. something I hadn't felt in years. Not love, exactly, but nostalgia for who I used to be when someone looked at me like that. Cameron, I'm married. I know. I saw your posts online. He looks like a good guy. He is a good guy. But are you happy? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to say yes immediately, defensively. Of course I was happy. Marcus was steady, reliable, kind. He remembered my coffee order and fixed things around the house without being asked, and called his mum every Sunday. He was everything a good husband should be. But Cameron's question wasn't really about happiness. It was about excitement, passion, that electric feeling of possibility. And if I was being honest, really honest, life with Marcus had become comfortable, predictable, safe. Yes, I finally said. I'm happy. Cameron smiled like he didn't believe me. Good, I'm glad. We talked for 2 hours about college memories, mutual friends, places we'd traveled, things we'd learned. It felt easy, natural, like slipping into an old favorite sweater. When we finally left the coffee shop, he touched my arm briefly. It was really good seeing you, Marina. Let's do this again? I should have said no. Instead, I heard myself say, yeah, I'd like that. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. The second meeting happened 2 weeks later. Then another 2 weeks after that. Each time, I told Marcus a different story. Helping Sophia. Meeting old classmates. Shopping for his birthday present. The lies multiplied like weeds, small at first, then taking over everything. Cameron and I never did anything physical during those first few meetings. We just talked. But there was an intimacy to it that felt almost more dangerous than anything physical could have been. He remembered tiny details about me, things I've forgotten I'd told him years ago. My favorite childhood book, the scar on my knee from falling off my bike at age 8. How I always ordered Thai food when I was stressed. Marcus remembered practical things, dentist appointments, car maintenance schedules, when the mortgage was due. Cameron remembered me, or at least that's what I told myself. The truth, which I couldn't see then, was that Cameron remembered a version of me that no longer existed. The 22-year-old girl with big dreams and no responsibilities. The one who stay up until 3 in the morning debating philosophy and could drop everything for a spontaneous road trip. That Marina was gone, replaced by someone who had a mortgage and a career and a husband who needed her. But sitting in Cameron's loft overlooking the city, drinking wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, I could pretend to be that girl again. The first time I kissed Cameron was on a Thursday evening. Marcus was at a motorcycle expo 3 hours away, staying overnight because he had meetings with potential suppliers the next morning. I'd encouraged him to go, even insisted on it. This is great for the business, I'd said, kissing his cheek. You deserve this. What I really meant was, this gives me a night without having to lie. Cameron cooked dinner at his place. Pasta primavera with wine and candlelight, and jazz playing softly in the background. It was the kind of evening Marcus and I never had. He wasn't a candlelight dinner kind of guy. He was a pizza on the couch, action movie, falling asleep before the ending kind of guy. And I'd always been fine with that. I'd loved that about him, actually, his simple contentment. But sitting across from Cameron, watching him talk about art galleries and weekend trips to wine country, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt special. Chosen. Like I was the kind of woman who deserved candlelit dinners and expensive wine. When he kissed me, I kissed him back. And I didn't stop there. I won't go into the details, because they don't matter, and honestly, they make me sick to remember now. What matters is that I made a choice. A deliberate, conscious choice to betray the man who loved me, trusted me, built a life with me. I drove home at 2 in the morning hands shaking on the steering wheel. I kept expecting to feel guilty, to be crushed under the weight of what I'd just done. But instead, I felt alive, electric, like I'd woken up from a long sleep and suddenly remembered what it felt like to actually feel something. That should have been my first clue that something was deeply wrong with me. Marcus came home the next afternoon with Chinese takeout and a gift, a small jade pendant he'd found at a shop near the expo. "Made me think of you," he said, fastening it around my neck. His hands were rough from years of working with tools, but his touch was always gentle. I wore the necklace and ate the takeout and listened to him talk about the new suppliers he'd met, and the entire time, Cameron's taste was still on my lips. The pendant felt like it was burning through my skin, branding me with my own betrayal. "You okay?" Marcus asked, studying my face. "You seem distracted." "Just tired," I lied. "Long week at work." He accepted that explanation because Marcus always accepted my explanations. He trusted me completely, without question, without reservation. That trust used to make me feel secure. Now it just made lying easier. The affair continued for 4 months. 4 months of secret meetings, coded text messages, elaborate excuses. Cameron and I would meet at his loft, sometimes at hotels outside Riverside, once at a bed and breakfast 2 hours away, then I told Marcus was a work conference. I lived 2 completely separate lives. There was Marina, the wife, who made breakfast, did laundry, kissed her husband goodbye every morning. And there was Marina, the mistress, who wore expensive lingerie, drank champagne at 3 in the afternoon, felt wanted in a way that made her forget about mortgage payments and grocery lists. The irony was that Marcus and I were actually doing well during this time. He'd landed a major contract to maintain motorcycles for a local delivery company. The shop was thriving. We'd started talking about maybe trying for a baby in the next year or 2. He was happy, present, affectionate, and I was lying to his face every single day. The cracks started showing in month 5. Cameron began pushing for more. "Leave him," he said one evening, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. "We're wasting time sneaking around. Just leave him and move in with me. Is this just some midlife crisis fling for you, or are we actually building towards something?" I didn't have an answer. The truth was I hadn't thought beyond the next secret meeting. I'd been living in this suspended moment where I could have both lives, both men, both versions of myself. "I need time," I finally said. Cameron's jaw tightened. "Fine, but I'm not going to wait forever. I want a real relationship." "Marina." "Not whatever this is." That should have been a wake-up call. Instead, it just made me panic. The idea of losing Cameron, of going back to being just Marcus's wife, felt suffocating. So I started spending more time with Cameron, taking bigger risks, telling bigger lies. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. "You've been gone a lot lately," he mentioned one Sunday morning while we were having breakfast. "Everything okay?" "Just busy with work," I said, not meeting his eyes. "This new project has me running around constantly." "Maybe you should ask for some help. You're burning yourself out." His concern made something twist in my chest. He wasn't suspicious. He was worried about me. That's who Marcus was, always thinking about my well-being, even when I was actively destroying his life. "I'm fine," I said. "It'll calm down soon." But it didn't calm down. It escalated, and everything came crashing down on a Friday night at 11:47 exactly. I remember the time because I was watching the clock, waiting for Cameron to text me back. Marcus and I were in bed. He was reading a repair manual for some vintage bike he was working on, and I was pretending to scroll through social media while actually waiting to see if Cameron had made our dinner plans for the next day. My phone buzzed. Not a text, a call. Cameron's name lit up the screen. I fumbled to silence it, but Marcus saw. His eyes went from my phone to my face, and something shifted in his expression. "Who's Cameron?" he asked quietly. "The crossroads I created." Part 2. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. For a second, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare at Marcus's face and watch understanding slowly dawn in his eyes. "Who's Cameron?" he asked again, and this time his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "A friend from college," I said, and the lie felt different this time, heavier. Like my mouth didn't want to form the words. "A friend who calls you at midnight on a Friday? He's probably drunk. You know how people get." Marcus sat up slowly, setting his manual aside. "Marina, look at me." I couldn't. If I looked at him, he'd see everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment I'd chosen Cameron over him. "Marina." His voice was firm now. "Look at me." I forced my eyes up to meet his. In 9 years of marriage, I'd seen Marcus angry, stressed, frustrated. But I'd never seen this look. It was worse than anger. It was hurt mixed with something that looked like dread. Like he already knew what I was going to say, but needed to hear it anyway. "Is there something you need to tell me?" This was my moment. My last chance to come clean on my own terms. To confess and beg for forgiveness and hope we could somehow salvage what was left of our marriage. But looking at his face, at the man who'd given me nothing but loyalty and love, I couldn't form the words. The truth felt too big, too destructive. So I did what I'd become an expert at. I lied. "There's nothing to tell. Cameron is an old friend who's going through a divorce. He calls sometimes when he's having a hard time. That's all." I watched Marcus's face carefully, looking for signs that he believed me. His expression didn't change. He just stared at me for what felt like an eternity, and then he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said quietly, "if you say so." He turned off his bedside lamp and lay down with his back to me. We didn't say goodnight. We didn't touch. The space between us in that bed felt like an ocean. I lay awake all night, my heart pounding, waiting for him to confront me again. He didn't. He just breathed steadily in the darkness while I counted every second of my guilt. The next morning, Marcus was gone before I woke up. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Had to open the shop early. Don't wait up tonight. Might be late." That was it. No "love you," no "have a good day." Just information. I called Cameron immediately. "We need to be more careful," I said when he answered. "Marcus almost caught us last night." "Maybe that's a sign," Cameron said. "Maybe it's time to stop sneaking around." "I need more time." "Marina, I love you, but I'm not going to be your secret forever. Make a decision, him or me." He hung up before I could respond. I spent that entire Saturday in a fog of anxiety. I cleaned the house obsessively, scrubbing floors that were already clean, reorganizing closets that didn't need organizing. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling. Marcus came home at 9 that night. He'd showered at the shop. I could smell the industrial soap he kept there. He went straight to the bedroom, without saying much beyond, "I'm exhausted." Sunday was worse. He was polite, but distant, like I was a roommate instead of his wife. We moved around each other carefully, speaking only when necessary. By Monday, I was desperate to fix whatever had broken. I made his favorite breakfast, packed his lunch, tried to kiss him goodbye. He accepted the breakfast, took the lunch, but turned his head so my kiss landed on his cheek instead of his lips. "Marcus, are we okay?" I finally asked. He stopped at the door, his hand on the knob. For a moment, I thought he might finally say what was really on his mind. Instead, he just said, "I don't know, Marina. Are we?" Then he left. That week was torture. Marcus came home late every night. When he was home, he was cordial but distant. We existed in the same space without actually connecting. It felt like watching our marriage die in slow motion. Cameron, meanwhile, was pressuring me constantly. Text messages asking when I'd make a decision. Calls I couldn't always answer. "I'm giving you one more week," he said during our Thursday meeting at his loft. "Then, I'm moving on. I can't keep putting my life on hold." "That's not fair," I protested. "This is complicated." "No, Marina. It's actually very simple. You either want to be with me or you don't. Everything else is just excuses." I felt trapped between two lives, unable to choose either one, paralyzed by the fear of losing both. The decision was made for me on a Wednesday night, 3 weeks after that first phone call. Marcus came home early, which was unusual. I was on the couch, texting Cameron about meeting up the next day. "We need to talk," Marcus said, and something in his tone made my blood run cold. He sat down in the armchair across from me, not next to me. That felt significant. "I hired someone," he said. "A private investigator." The world tilted. "What? Why would you do that?" "Because you've been lying to me." His voice was steady, but there was pain underneath it. "I knew something was wrong. I just needed proof before I confronted you." "Marcus, I don't know what you think." He pulled out his phone and started showing me pictures. Me entering Cameron's building. Me leaving hours later. Me at restaurants with Cameron. Me kissing Cameron in the parking garage of a hotel. Each picture felt like a knife. There was no way to explain them away. No lie big enough to cover this. "How long?" he asked. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. "How long, Marina?" His voice cracked on my name. 5 months, I whispered. He flinched like I'd hit him. 5 months, Jesus. He stood up, paced to the window, pressed his palms against the glass. "Who is he?" "Does it matter?" I asked. He spun around. "Yes, it matters. I want to know who my wife has been sleeping with for 5 months while I was working my ass off to build a life for us." "Cameron Ashford," I said quietly. "We dated in college." "An ex." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course it's an ex." "God, Marina, how stupid do you think I am? All those late nights, those weekend trips, those times you were helping save Thea. I knew. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just kept hoping I was paranoid." "Marcus, I'm sorry." "Don't." He held up his hand. "Don't apologize. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." He was right, and we both knew it. "I want you out," he said. "Tonight." "What?" "Marcus, no, we can talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. I contacted a divorce attorney this morning. You'll be served with papers in a few days. Until then, I want you out of this house. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. The house is in my name. I bought it before we got married. Check the deed if you don't believe me." I sat there, stunned. In 9 years, I'd never thought about whose name was on the house. It had always been our house in my mind. "You have 2 hours to pack what you need," Marcus said. "The rest we can sort out through lawyers." "Marcus, please, we can go to counseling. We can work through this." He looked at me with those brown eyes that used to look at me with so much love. Now they were just empty. You know what the worst part is? It's not even the cheating. It's that you looked me in the eye every single day and lied. You let me make plans for our future. You let me talk about having kids with you. You let me love you while you were betraying me. That's what I can't forgive. I started crying then, not delicate tears, but ugly, gasping sobs. "I love you. I never stopped loving you." "No, Marina. You loved what I provided. Stability, security, a backup plan while you chased whatever excitement that guy offered you. That's not love. That's convenience." He walked past me to the bedroom. I heard drawers opening and closing, hangers scraping against the closet rod. He was packing for me. I sat on that couch, frozen, while my marriage ended around me. When Marcus brought out a suitcase and a duffel bag, I still hadn't moved. "I packed the basics," he said. "Clothes, toiletries, your laptop. Everything else we can divide later." Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Marina. Maybe Cameron's place. Isn't that what you wanted anyway? The bitterness in his voice cut through me, but he was right. I'd made my choice every time I lied, every time I met Cameron, every time I chose the affair over my marriage. I stood up mechanically, picked up the bags. As I walked toward the door, Marcus spoke one more time. I really loved you. I need you to know that. Everything I did, every hour I worked, every plan I made, it was all for us. You were my whole future. Marcus. Goodbye, Marina. The finality in that word made my knees weak, but I walked out anyway, because staying would only make it worse. I sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes, crying so hard I couldn't see. Finally, I drove to the only place I could think of. Cameron answered his door in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Marina? What's wrong? Marcus knows. He kicks me out. Can I stay here? Cameron's expression flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Of course, come in. He made space for my things in his closet. He ordered takeout. He held me while I cried. But something felt different. The excitement, the passion, the intensity, it all felt muted somehow. So I guess you made your choice, he said later that night as we lay in his bed. I didn't have much of an option. Still, you're here now. We can finally be together properly. I nodded that something felt wrong. Being with Cameron full-time wasn't the fantasy I'd imagined. It was just real. And reality with Cameron was looking a lot less appealing than the stolen moments had been. The next few days were a blur. I took time off work, claiming a family emergency. Cameron went to his job during the day, while I stayed in his loft, surrounded by someone else's life. His furniture, his dishes, his books, his space. I didn't belong there. The divorce papers arrived on day 4. I sat on Cameron's leather couch and read through page after page of legal language that translated to, "Your marriage is over. You destroyed it. Here are the consequences." Marcus wasn't asking for much. He wanted the house, his business, and a clean break. I could keep my car, my personal belongings, and my retirement account. It was fair, more than fair considering what I'd done. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Chen, this is Detective Rachel Morrison with Riverside PD. I need to ask you some questions about your credit cards. My stomach dropped. What about them? We've received reports of unusual activity on several of your accounts. Large cash advances, transfers to unfamiliar accounts. I need you to come down to the station. What? I don't understand. We believe you may be a victim of fraud, or, she paused significantly. We need to rule out that you weren't involved in the fraudulent activity yourself. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, trying to process what I'd just heard. Fraud? What fraud? I logged into my banking app with shaking hands. What I saw made me physically sick. Cash advances totaling $30,000. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Credit cards I didn't remember opening, all maxed out. My savings account, which had $17,000 last time I checked, was down to $432. I scrolled through the transactions, my hands shaking harder with each one. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. The transfers. They'd all been initiated from my laptop, but the dates. I checked my calendar. Those were days I'd been at Cameron's place. Days I'd left my laptop on his counter while we were in his bedroom. Days I'd fallen asleep and woken up to find him working on his own computer nearby. No. I pulled up my email. There were confirmation emails for loans I never took out. Credit cards I never applied for, all using my information, my identity. Cameron. I screamed his name, even though he wasn't home. If you'll feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community, so we can bring more truthful stories for you. I called him immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again and again. By the 7th call, he finally answered. Marina, I'm in a meeting. What did you do? My voice was shaking with rage and terror. What did you do to my accounts? Silence. Cameron, answer me. I don't know what you're talking about. The police just called. Someone drained my accounts, took out loans in my name. And it all happened from my laptop while I was at your place. More silence. Then, maybe you should be more careful with your passwords. The casual tone of his voice made everything click into place. It was you. This whole time, you've been stealing from me. That's a serious accusation, Marina. The police are investigating. They'll trace everything back to you. He laughed. Actually laughed. Will they? Because from what I understand, you had access to your own laptop. You made all those transactions. How would they prove otherwise? You bastard. Look, I needed money. My startup fell through. I'd got debts you can't imagine. When you came back into my life, it seemed like an opportunity. An opportunity. I destroyed my marriage for you. No, he said coldly. You destroyed your marriage for you. Because you were bored. Because you wanted excitement. I just gave you what you were already looking for. The rest was your choice. So none of it was real? You never loved me? I loved what you could give me. The money helped, but honestly, Marina, you made it so easy. You were so desperate to feel special, to feel young again. Do you know how pathetic that is? Each word was a knife. There were others, weren't there? I wasn't the only one. You were the most useful one. The others didn't have access to credit like you did. I felt like I was going to throw up. I'm going to the police. I'm telling them everything. Go ahead, but think about how that'll look. You're already getting divorced for having an affair. Now you're claiming the guy you were cheating with stole from you? They'll think you're just trying to deflect blame, especially when I show them all the texts where you talked about wanting to help me, wanting to take care of me. I never said that. Marina, I have hundreds of texts from you. Some of them are even real. Some of them I had to edit slightly, but they're very convincing. You'd be amazed what AI can do these days. My entire body went cold. You're lying. Try me. Go to the police. See whose story they believe. The successful tech consultant whose overeager ex-girlfriend is having a meltdown? Or the woman who destroyed her marriage and is now claiming she was manipulated into committing fraud? The line went dead. I sat there for a long moment, the phone still pressed to my ear. Then I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. When I could finally stand, I started packing my things. I had to get out of Cameron's loft. I had to get away from him. But where would I go? I'd burned every bridge. Marcus hated me. I'd been lying to my friends for months. My family lived 3 states away, and I barely spoken to them during the affair because I was too busy lying. I threw my clothes into my suitcase, tears streaming down my face. This couldn't be happening. This had to be a nightmare. My phone rang again. The police station. Mrs. Chen, we need you to come in tomorrow morning at 9. Don't leave town. Am I being charged with something? We're still investigating. Just be here at 9. I spent that night in a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with cigarette burns in the bedspread, and a bathroom that hadn't been properly cleaned in years. It was all I could afford, with what was left in my checking account. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face when I walked out, or Cameron's smug expression, or the police officer's stern voice. At 8:30 the next morning, I drove to the police station. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. Detective Morrison was a woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and no-nonsense attitude. She led me into an interview room and laid out papers across the table. I've looked at page after page of financial records. I didn't make those. My ex-boyfriend, Cameron Ashford, he had access to my laptop. He must have... Mr. Ashford came in yesterday evening, she interrupted. He told us you'd probably blame him. He also provided text messages showing you asking him for help managing your finances. Those are fake. He told me he edited them. Can you prove that? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How could I prove it? I deleted most of my messages with Cameron, trying to hide the evidence of our affair from Marcus. Detective Morrison leaned back in her chair. Here's what I think happened. You were having an affair. You gave your boyfriend money, maybe to help him out, maybe to keep him around. Then your husband found out and filed for divorce. Now you're trying to claim fraud to avoid responsibility. No, that's not what happened. Then tell me what did happen. And Mrs. Chen, I need you to be completely honest, because if you lie to me now, it's going to make everything much worse. So I told her. Everything. The affair, the lies, how I'd leave my laptop at Cameron's place, how I just discovered the transactions, how he'd admitted to stealing from me, but threatened to show fake texts. She listened without expression. When I finished, she said, "Do you have any proof that he admitted to the theft?" The phone call. I could get the records. Verbal admissions over the phone are hard to prove. Did you record the conversation? I shook my head. Did anyone else hear it? No. She gathered her papers. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to be straight with you. This case is messy. We've got your prints on every transaction. Your laptop, your accounts, your passwords. Mr. Ashford's attorney has already sent over text messages that appear to show you voluntarily giving him money. Without concrete proof that he stole from you, this looks a lot like a crime you committed. But I didn't. He used me. Maybe, but proving that in court, that's going to be very difficult. She stood up. I recommend you get a good lawyer. And Mrs. Chen, don't leave town. I walked out of that police station in a daze. The morning sun was too bright. Everything felt surreal. My phone rang. Marcus. My heart leaped. Maybe he'd heard about everything. Maybe he'd believe me. Hello? I just got a very interesting call, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. From my bank. Apparently, someone took out a home equity line of credit on our house last month. Care to explain? My heart stopped. What? $50,000, Marina, against the house. The house you knew was in my name. The bank is asking me about it because I'm listed as the primary owner. Marcus, I didn't say that. I know it was you. Your signature is on all the paperwork. Or did Cameron steal that too? The bitterness in his voice destroyed me. I didn't know. I swear. He must have had me sign something without reading it. Maybe when I was at his place, he could have... Jesus Christ, Marina. Do you hear yourself? You just keep making excuses. First, it was a mistake. Then, you were confused. Now, you're claiming you were tricked. When are you going to take responsibility for anything? I am taking responsibility. Marcus, please. Cameron is not who I thought he was. He's been stealing from both of us. We need to go to the police together. I'm not doing anything with you. Not anymore. My lawyer is handling everything now, including pursuing criminal charges for the home equity fraud. Criminal charges? Marcus, no, please. You destroyed our marriage. That hurt. But stealing from me? Forging documents? That's criminal, Marina, and I'm not protecting you anymore. The line went dead. I stood in the parking lot, surrounded by cars and people going about their normal lives, and I screamed. Actually screamed at the top of my lungs until my throat was raw. A security guard approached. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down or leave." I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove until I ran out of gas on some back road outside of town. I called AAA with a credit card that wasn't maxed out yet. While I waited for the tow truck, I did something I should have done months ago. I called my mother. "Marina, sweetheart, I haven't heard from you in weeks. How are you?" At the sound of her voice, I completely broke down. Mom, I messed up. I messed up so bad. What happened? I told her everything. The affair, Marcus kicking me out, Cameron stealing from me, the police investigation, the possibility of criminal charges. I left nothing out. She was silent for a long moment after I finished. Then she said, "Come home. Get on a plane and come home." "I can't leave town," the police said. "Then I'm coming to you. Pack what you can. I'll be there by tomorrow night." Mom, I don't deserve. Marina Louise Chen, you are my daughter. You made terrible choices, but you're still my daughter. Now give me the address of where you're staying. I gave her the motel address and hung up. The tow truck arrived and took me and my car to a gas station. I filled up the tank with the last $20 in my wallet and drove back to the motel. That night, lying in that terrible motel bed, I finally let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. The shame, the regret, the horror of what I'd become. I'd been so focused on feeling special, on recapturing some imaginary version of my youth, that I'd destroyed everything real in my life. Marcus was right. I had stability, partnership, real love. And I'd thrown it away. For what? For lies and theft and manipulation disguised as passion. My mother arrived the next evening with 2 suitcases and a grim expression. She took one look at the motel room and said, "We're getting you somewhere better." She paid for a month at an extended stay hotel. She bought me groceries. She sat with me while I met with lawyers, a divorce attorney and a criminal defense attorney. The news wasn't good. The divorce was straightforward. I'd get almost nothing because of my infidelity and the fraud issues. The criminal case was more complicated. The prosecution is building a case for identity theft, fraud, and forgery, my criminal attorney explained. If they can prove you knowingly used Marcus's information to take out that home equity line, you're looking at potential jail time. But I didn't. Cameron did all of it. Can you prove that in court? Beyond reasonable doubt? I couldn't. Everything pointed to me. My laptop, my passwords, my signature. The attorney looked at my mother, then back at me. There might be a way to reduce the charges. If you cooperate fully, pay back what you can, and plead to lesser charges, we might be able to keep you out of jail, but it means admitting guilt. But I didn't do it. Marina, my mother said gently, think about what's realistic here. Saying this could mean years in prison if you lose. Taking a plea deal might mean probation, community service, and a chance to rebuild your life. She was right. I knew she was right. But admitting guilt for something Cameron did felt like letting him win. I need to think about it, I said. Over the next week, I did a lot of thinking. I also did something I should have done from the beginning. I investigated Cameron. It wasn't hard. A few social media searches, some public records, and conversations with people who knew him. What I found made me sick. Cameron had a pattern. He dated at least 5 women in the past 3 years. All of them had similar stories. He'd swept them off their feet, moved fast, gained their trust, and then, suddenly, they'd find themselves in financial trouble. Maxed out credit cards, mysterious loans, drained bank accounts. One woman, Jennifer, agreed to talk to me on the phone. He targeted women going through transitions, she explained. Divorce, job changes, midlife crises. He was good at finding women who were vulnerable and making them feel special. Did you go to the police? I tried, but by the time I realized what he'd done, he'd covered his tracks. He had text messages making it look like I'd given him the money willingly. Sound familiar? It did, exactly. How did you recover? I asked. She laughed bitterly. I'm still recovering. I filed for bankruptcy, lost my house, but at least I got out before it got worse. You need to report everything to the police, even if they don't believe you at first. Build a case. Document everything. I thanked her and hung up. Then I started documenting. Every message, every transaction, every interaction I could remember. I wrote it all down in painful detail. I also did something harder. I wrote a letter to Marcus. Dear Marcus, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable, and I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I just need you to know the truth. Cameron Ashford targeted me. I know that sounds like an excuse, but it's not. I made the choice to cheat. I made the choice to lie to you every day. Those were my decisions, and I own them completely. But the financial fraud, that was him. I've been investigating, and I found 4 other women he did this to. He's a professional con artist. He manipulates women who are going through changes in their lives, makes them feel special, gains their trust, and then steals everything he can. Oh, and I was stupid enough to fall for it. I was so caught up in feeling young and desired again that I didn't see what he was really doing. And because of my stupidity, you got hurt too. Sorry. We'll see you soon. The home equity line on the house. I never knowingly signed those papers. I think he had me sign things at his place, telling me they were something else. I was too trusting and too foolish to read carefully. I've given all the information I have to my attorney and the police. I don't know if it'll be enough to prove what he did, but I had to try. Not for me, but because you deserve to get your money back. The house was your dream, and I helped him steal from that dream. I don't expect you to believe me. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know that not all of it was lies. My feelings for you were real. The life we built was real. I just lost sight of how valuable that was, until I destroyed it. I'm sorry. Those words are inadequate, but they're all I have. Marina, I didn't mail the letter. I drove to his shop and left it with Ray, who looked at me like I was something scraped off his shoe. He doesn't want to see you, Ray said. I know. Just give him this, please. Ray took the envelope reluctantly. I drove away before I could change my mind. 3 days later, my attorney called. I've got news. Cameron Ashford was arrested this morning. My heart stopped. What? Turns out Marcus Chen went to the police with his own evidence. Security footage from his shop, showing Cameron coming in multiple times when Marcus was away. Then Marcus checked his business accounts and found similar fraudulent activity. Combined with your testimony and the other women who've come forward, they finally had enough to arrest him. I couldn't speak. Marcus had helped me. After everything I'd done, he'd still helped bring Cameron down. There's more, my attorney continued. With Cameron's arrest, the prosecution is willing to drop the charges against you. They want you to testify against him instead. Testify? In court? Yes. It won't be pleasant. His defense will try to paint you as a willing participant. They'll bring up the affair, make you look bad. But it's the only way to ensure justice and clear your name. I'll do it, I said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. The trial took place 4 months later. By then, I'd moved back home with my parents in Portland, taken a job at a local company, and started seeing a therapist twice a week. The divorce from Marcus was finalized. I got my personal belongings, my car, and a mountain of debt to repay. He got the house, his business, and hopefully some peace. I wrote to him one more time, thanking him for helping catch Cameron despite everything. He didn't respond. I didn't expect him to. Testifying at Cameron's trial was the hardest thing I've ever done. Cameron's lawyer tried to destroy my credibility. He brought up every lie I'd told Marcus, every choice I'd made during the affair, every moment of moral weakness. Isn't it true, Miss Chen, that you willingly gave Mr. Ashford money? I gave him some money, yes, but not $30,000. Not by taking out loans in my name. But you did give him money. You did share your passwords with him. You did allow him access to your laptop. Yes? Yes, so it's possible, isn't it, that you gave him permission to access your accounts, and you simply regret it, now that you've been caught? No, that's not what happened. But I could see the jury's faces. They were judging me, and they were right to. The other women testified too. Jennifer. Plus, 3 others who Cameron had scammed over the years. Their stories were heartbreakingly similar to mine. Smart women, going through transitions, targeted and manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to exploit their vulnerabilities. The prosecution showed the jury Cameron's financial records, a pattern of sudden influxes of cash that matched up perfectly with the times he'd been dating each of us. Trips to luxury hotels paid for with credit cards in our names. Purchases of expensive items that he'd later sold. In the end, the jury found him guilty on multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and theft by deception. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. I felt no satisfaction watching him get led away in handcuffs. Just emptiness. Because putting Cameron in jail didn't give me my life back. It didn't undo the damage I'd caused. It didn't restore my marriage or my reputation or my financial stability. After the trial, I went back to Portland and threw myself into rebuilding. I worked extra hours to pay down my debt. I went to therapy to understand why I'd made such destructive choices. I volunteered at a women's shelter, helping other women recognize the signs of manipulation and financial abuse. Slowly, painfully, I started to become someone I could live with again. 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Marcus at a motorcycle expo in Seattle. I was there for work. He was there for his business. We saw each other across the convention hall. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he nodded slightly and walked over. Marina. Marcus, how are you? Good. Really good, actually. The shop's doing well. I expanded to a second location last year. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. Silence stretched between us. There was so much I wanted to say, but what was the point? Sorry wouldn't change anything. I read about the trial, he said finally. I'm glad they got him. Thank you for helping with that, where evidence made the difference. He shrugged. It was the right thing to do. What he did to you, to all those women, that wasn't okay. Still, you didn't have to help me after everything. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. No, I didn't. But despite everything, I didn't want to see you go to prison for something you didn't do. The cheating was your choice. The fraud wasn't. Tears pricked my eyes. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for getting caught, for all of it. You deserved so much better. Yeah, he said quietly. I did. He turned to leave, then stopped. Marina, I hope you figure out whatever made you do all that. I hope you find whatever you were looking for. I wasn't looking for anything, I said. I was running from something, from getting older, from routine, from the fear that my life had peaked, and it was all just maintenance from there. I wanted to feel special again. You were special, Marcus said. You just couldn't see it. Then he walked away, and I let him go. Standing there in that convention hall, surrounded by the noise of the expo, I finally understood what I'd lost. Not just a husband, but a partner who'd seen value in me that I couldn't see in myself. Someone who'd loved me, not because I was exciting or kept him on his toes, but because I was me. And that had been enough for him. It should have been enough for me too. I'd spent so much time chasing a fantasy that I'd destroyed the reality that actually mattered. And now I had to live with that knowledge every single day. The mistakes we make don't go away. We carry them with us, scars that remind us of who we were and who we never want to be again. Sometimes at night, I still lie awake and think about all the moments I could have chosen differently. The first text to Cameron. The first lie to Marcus. The first time I crossed a line I swore I'd never cross. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward and try to be better than we were. 3 years after the trial, I'm still paying off debt. And still in therapy. I'm still learning to trust myself again. I've had a few dates, but nothing serious. I don't know if I'm ready for serious. I don't know if I deserve it. What I do know is this. The grass isn't greener on the other side. Sometimes it's just painted to look that way by someone who wants to use you. Real grass, the kind you've cultivated with time and care and commitment, that's what matters. That's what lasts. I lost everything to learn that lesson. My marriage, my home, my financial stability, my reputation, my self-respect. The price was too high, but I paid it anyway. Now I live with the consequences, not bitterly, but honestly. I made my choices. I hurt people who loved me. I let myself be used because it felt good in the moment. And I destroyed something beautiful because I couldn't appreciate its value until it was gone. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. This is my truth. Ugly, shameful, painful, but it's mine. And sharing it is the only way I know to warn others. If you have something real, hold on to it. If you have someone who loves you genuinely, don't take that for granted, because there are people out there who will see your vulnerabilities and exploit them. And if you let them, they'll help you destroy everything that actually matters. I can't get Marcus back. I can't undo the pain I caused him. I can't erase the choices I made or the lies I told. All I can do is be honest now when it's too late to matter. And hope that someone hearing this story makes a different choice than I did. Because the excitement fades, the passion burns out, the fantasy crumbles when reality hits. What remains is what you built with patience and commitment and genuine love. And if you've destroyed that for something shiny and temporary, you'll spend the rest of your life regretting it. I know I will. My name is Marina Chen, and this is the story of how I lost everything. Not because someone took it from me, but because I handed it away piece by piece, lie by lie, choice by choice. And now I have to live with the woman those choices made me. Some consequences you carry forever. Some mistakes you can never fix. Some doors, once closed, never open again. I learned that the hardest way possible. I hope you never have to.